So the one food that we're being told don't eat under any circumstances is animal fats. The animal fats are our only source of a type of fat called arachidonic acid. And out of arachidonic acid, we make cannabinoids. So the animal fats are designed to make us feel good. And we have people who feel terrible because they're avoiding animal fats. So the first thing I say is, if you feel like, you need some kind of high, eat butter, eat egg yolks. I say eat a stick of butter a day, 6 egg yolks a day, and then see how you feel. Isn't that a better way than, getting addicted to marijuana?
Hey everybody, I'm Hilda Labrada-Gore, and this is episode 190. Our guest today is Sally Fallon Morell. Sally is the founder and the head of the Weston A Price Foundation, a popular speaker, author, and an advocate for our health on the front lines. She is fearless in challenging the status quo time and again when it comes to what the diet dictocrats tell us is best for our health. Today, we touch on the important topic of aluminum, cannabis, and fluoride. Sally separates fact from fiction, explaining what the science shows in relation to all three of these. And I love that she offers solutions when we talk. She's all about helping us figure out how to keep our bodies strong in the face of the many toxins that assail us. Before we get into it, I've got to say, you guys, we want you on this podcast. We just hit the milestone of 2 million downloads. And we want you to get on the air. Tell us what you love about the show and how it's made a difference in your life. Just go to our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. Go to the About the Podcast section there, and you'll see how to go about it. It's a simple program called Speakpipe. You just push record and then send it to us. We will put a selection of our favorite recordings onto the celebration show in just a few weeks. Thanks in advance for being a part of our special 2 million download celebration. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Vintage Tradition. Just in time for chapped, sunburned lip season, Vintage Tradition has come out with 4 great flavors of their tallow balm that you know and love in a convenient tube: Citrus Shine, Peppermint Stick, Vanilla Bean, and Totally Unscented. Protect your lips naturally at vintagetradition.com. And for a limited time, get 10% off your entire order with coupon code PODCAST10. And Ancestral Supplements. Intestines with Tripe by Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. New Zealand-sourced, nose-to-tail organ meats and bone marrow in convenient gelatin capsules. Our family is really hooked on these supplements based on the ancient wisdom of like supports like. Order yours today at ancestralsupplements.com. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Sally.
Here we are again, Hilda. This is always so much fun to talk with you.
It really is, and I love getting these journal highlights. We always kick it off with a caustic commentary, and this time was fantastic because you addressed the Eat Lancet report that's trying to promote a plant-based diet. Can you tell us why?
Yes. So the Eat Lancet report came out with a lot of fanfare, and it's promoting a plant-based diet. It's interesting. They're not talking about a vegetarian diet anymore. They're talking about plant-based diet with lots of lentils and grains. You get a teaspoon of red meat a day and a quarter of a piece of bacon and, and a little bit of egg. I mean, is some animal food in there, but it's a poverty third world diet that they are promoting. And there's all sorts of little hints in the report about how they're going to do this with taxes and legislation and so forth. So the idea is that they're going to impose this diet on everybody.
The whole planet, really.
The whole planet. It's a plant-based diet for everybody because otherwise we won't be able to feed everyone. And so everybody has to eat lentils because everything's gotten so bad on the planet. Well, I don't agree with that last statement at all. Things are actually getting better on the planet. We have a surplus of food. Our population is decreasing, and we're soon going to find out that that's not such a good thing. But that's the agenda. And interesting to me is the WHO came out, WHO, a few weeks later and said they don't endorse this because it would be too hard on indigenous cultures and, their animal-based lifestyle. So I thought that was kind of interesting, yes. But the Lancet people are forging ahead.
Sally, if we tried to eat that way, I feel like we'd be hungry all the time.
Well, we would be hungry all the time. Our growth would be stunted. We'd be deficient in a lot of minerals, including zinc and vitamins like A and D. It's a deficiency diet, and it's designed to keep people poor and of short stature and, without much energy.
And without proper brain function.
Right. You can't develop your brain with that kind of diet. And the second caustic commentary I did right after is, it's titled, Now We Know Why. And it was a report done actually about 10 years ago. It was a study done in Africa, and they had children who were basically on a starvation diet, just grains and legumes. And they had several groups, and one group got some milk, and one group got some vegetable oil, and the third group got meat, in addition to their diet. Well, the group that got the meat grew better, grew taller, they were more robust, but the most interesting thing is that the ones who got the meat showed leadership capabilities. They started to really take charge on the playground. They were asking questions. They were being leaders, and those were the ones getting meat. And so now we know why. The people doing these plant-based diets and advocating these plant-based diets, they don't want leaders. They don't want people taking the initiative, asking questions in our population.
Wow, that's a really profound theory. Yeah. It's a lot for our listeners to consider. They should consider it.
Yes, so there is a reason. There's a reason they don't like us to eat beef, because beef is full of all the things that nourish our brain and give us energy and will forces. And America and the Western world, we are meat eaters, and we have leaders, and we ask questions, and we're these pesky, independent thinkers. And if you want to control the world, you don't want people like that.
Now, I have a question for you. Some people think maybe the foundation is all about advocating a carnivore diet only, exclusively. What would you say to that?
No, this is not correct. We advocate an omnivore diet, a diet that has all the delicious foods in it that mankind has enjoyed forever. And we include grains in the diet, fruits and vegetables. Dairy foods are in our diet. And especially lots and lots of good fats, which is the thing that's most missing in our diet today. And also, of course, animal foods. And my goodness, what a array of animal foods we have to choose from. Fish, shellfish, eggs, dairy foods, cheese, my favorite, meat, poultry, and, of course, the organ meats. There's such a range of choices for us, and those foods are here for us to enjoy, and they're here for us to nourish ourselves with.
I'm so glad you're strong advocates for what's really going to nourish and build our bodies. Now let's go through more of the journal here. There are 3 hard-hitting articles that are about subjects that people might not know a lot about. The first is about aluminum.
Yes, I thought this was an extremely important article for us to publish, because we hear time and again, vaccines don't cause autism. Vaccines don't cause autism. You hear it everywhere. It's like a mantra, like a dogma. And this article really opens up a discussion about this, because it's by Christopher Exley. He is a researcher from the UK and the world's expert on aluminum. And he had some funding from Children's Medical Research Institute in the United States, and they had cadavers of autistic children who died with a diagnosis of autism. Mm-hmm. And they looked at they had 10 cadavers. They looked at the 10 brains in these children. They analyzed the 10 brains. And all 10 of them had aluminum levels that were off the charts. He had never seen such high aluminum in any brain that he'd ever studied. And he'd studied a lot of Alzheimer's brains, which are high in aluminum. But this was higher.
So just to review, so these cadavers of these 10 children who had passed, who had been diagnosed with autism, had higher levels of aluminum in their brain than even these Alzheimer's patients and all the other brains that Christopher Exley had studied?
Any other brain that he'd ever looked at. And all 10. So it was, uniform across, the uniform results. And not only was it in the neurons, but it was in the tissue, the other kind of general tissue in the brain that gets inflamed and so forth. So it was all over the brain. So where is this aluminum coming from? The only explanation, in my opinion, is vaccinations. And just to give you an example, when the child is 2 months old, it's supposed to get 8 vaccinations. And the total number of aluminum in those vaccinations is 1,225 micrograms. Okay, that's in one day, and that's directly into the bloodstream. Now, the amount of aluminum that's allowable, if this baby was hooked up to intravenous feeding for some reason, the amount of aluminum that they allow for children is 25 micrograms. So can you see how much higher this is? This is 1,225 micrograms that are going into the child's bloodstream at once, all at one time, in one day.
It's alarming. But some people would say, well, then how come all the children don't have autism?
Yes, a very good question. Well, not all the children are vaccinated or so heavily vaccinated. And some children seem to have better capacity for excreting this aluminum, a better, more developed blood-brain barrier, and that could be from mom's nutrition while she was pregnant. In all, a fully vaccinated baby by the age of 18 months has almost 5,000 micrograms of aluminum injected into the bloodstream. And I go again back to what the FDA allows for babies getting intravenous feeding is only 25 micrograms. And yet the FDA or the CDC think it's fine to inject all this aluminum into the bloodstream of little babies.
And why is aluminum in the vaccines in the first place?
It's because the aluminum provokes an antibody reaction. It provokes an immune reaction. That's what I want to say. Okay. And without this immune reaction, the vaccines would not work at all. They would be useless. But they do work a little bit. You know, their immunity wears off after a while. But and that's because of the aluminum. So these vaccines would not work without the aluminum.
Well, this is an eye-opening article and information that you cite from Exley. So has his study been published in peer-reviewed journals? That's what everyone always asks.
Oh, yes, and it has. It's definitely been published in peer-reviewed journals, and then the university took away all his independent funding from him. So the pressure was put on the university. To me, Hilda, this is the smoking gun. This is explosive information, and it needs to get out there, and we'll make sure that it does get out there. How can you just categorically say vaccines don't cause autism when you have this information here? Brains are loaded with aluminum, and we know what aluminum does to the brain, and the only explanation for that is the aluminum in the vaccinations.
It's not like the parents are cooking in a lot of aluminum pots and pans and all their children are getting sick.
Well, actually, they might be. They might be cooking in aluminum pans, and that's not good either. But when you have aluminum in your food, only 1% is absorbed because you have a mechanism. Our guts are designed to keep out the bad stuff and to keep out the, heavy metals and toxic metals and so forth. But when you inject it directly into the bloodstream, that's not happening. 100% is going into the bloodstream.
Yeah, and there's no first line of defense there.
Yes, and we have a whole sidebar in this article on how to avoid exposure to aluminum, and that means don't use aluminum pans, don't cook your food in aluminum foil, don't use aluminum-containing deodorants. But first and foremost is don't put it in your bloodstream, and the way it's being done is with injections.
Coming up, Sally goes deep into the latest craze on cannabis. She explains the history, myths, and truth about fluoride in our water and drinks, and she gives us solutions on how to help our bodies deal with these chemicals.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Chelsea Green Publishing. Chelsea Green Publishing is recognized as a leading publisher of books about organic farming and gardening, homesteading, local food, restorative living, and diet-focused integrative health. Some recent and best-selling health titles include Vaccines, Autoimmunity, and the Changing Nature of Childhood Illness by Dr. Thomas Cowan, The Alzheimer's Antidote by Amy Berger, Nutrition in Crisis by Richard Feynman, and The Metabolic Approach to Cancer by Dr. Naisha Winters and Jess Higgins-Kelly. Go to chelseagreen.com and enter code WISE19 at checkout for 20% off your next print book purchase. And be sure to sign up for the newsletter and stay up to date on new releases and audiobooks. and grass-fed intestines with tripe by Ancestral Supplements. Ancestral Supplements offer New Zealand-sourced, nose-to-tail organ meats, bone marrow, and intestines with tripe in convenient gelatin capsules. According to the great John Fire Lame Deer, the eating of guts evolved into a contest. Quote, "In the old days, we used to eat the guts of the buffalo, making a contest of it. Two fellows getting hold of a long piece of intestines from opposite ends started chewing toward the middle, seeing who could get there first. That's eating. Those buffalo guts full of half-fermented, half-digested grass and herbs, you didn't need any pills and vitamins when you swallowed those." End quote. Intestines, stomach, tripe, and other gelatinous parts provided concentrated amounts of connective tissue, undenatured collagen, probiotics, and other gut-specific proteins that are now absent from the modern diet. Visit ancestralsupplements.com to see what they can do for you. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Now let's talk about another controversial subject, actually. I believe Kim Hartke wrote an article on cannabis. Talk to us about the cannabis craze.
Yes, I had to bring this subject to the board of directors before I wanted to go ahead with this, because this is a really controversial subject and it makes us a lightning rod for sure. And the board was really 100% behind me on this. We are... the cannabis is being promoted like this cure-all. I mean, every week I get an email telling me this wonderful pure cannabis oil is going to solve all my health problems. And cannabis is a psychoactive substance. It is a drug, and it is being pushed out there on unsuspecting population without any oversight or feedback or anything.
So anecdotally, people are saying, oh, it's relieving joint pain or anxiety. Are there studies on this, or is it just kind of something that's coming out now and it's too soon to tell?
Yeah, there are studies on cannabis, and overall the studies show that cannabis use, especially frequent cannabis use, ends up in more suicides, more depression, more psychotic behavior. And what we have to realize is that the cannabis today is so much more potent than the cannabis was, when I was in college. I saw a talk where if you smoked a joint at Woodstock, okay, and the joint you smoke today would be 18 times more potent. And the dab that they use today is like 40 times more potent. So you're getting they bred the cannabis plants to produce a lot of THC, which is a really psychoactive component. But even the CBD oil, which isn't supposed to be psychoactive, but a lot of it contains THC. It's impossible to completely separate it. And we're just, leaping off the cliff into unknown territory here.
And why are people so ready to do so? I feel like especially in the health and wellness space, actually.
Yes, I know. Well, people are pretty sick and, they've got joint pains and aches and so forth. They don't feel good. They feel depressed. And, our response to this is, first and foremost, if you're having these problems, you need to eat the kind of foods that allow your body to make endogenous cannabinoids. Our bodies can make exactly the same thing that's in cannabis, and we have receptors for it. And we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to feel good. We're supposed to feel a little bit high all the time. And we do that with our diet. And what is the component of our diet that allows us to do that? To make
Let me guess.
Endocannabinoids. You can guess.
Is it animal fats?
It is animal fats. So the one food that we're being told don't eat under any circumstances is animal fats. The animal fats are our only source of a type of fat called arachidonic acid. And out of arachidonic acid, we make cannabinoids. So the animal fats are designed to make us feel good. And we have people who feel terrible because they're avoiding animal fats. So the first thing I say is, if you feel like, you need some kind of high, eat butter, eat egg yolks. I say eat a stick of butter a day, 6 egg yolks a day, and then see how you feel. Isn't that a better way than, getting addicted to marijuana?
Wow. So I suggest that people really check out this article and look at it in depth so they can understand the pros and cons. Are there any pros to it at all, Sally?
Well, I think there might be promise for topical application. I've had some feedback on this that, really pain in the joint or something, it was helpful. So I think that's what should be looked at to see if that causes addiction or if it's really helpful for local pain. But the studies on where they take it internally for pain are very conflicting. And in fact, for this article, I interviewed a man who runs a pain clinic, a doctor who runs a pain clinic in Colorado, and he says he's not seeing any help from the cannabis oil or the THC or anything for pain, and that it tends to make people get addicted to other substances in the process.
Wow, so a word of caution.
By the way, we really carefully vetted this article. One of our dear board members went over every reference, and so we're quite proud to put this out there. We were even having chapter leaders inviting people to speak on CBD oil and stuff at meetings, and so we had to do something to make sure that people were getting the truth.
And I just want to put in a quick plug. You can get the journal when you become members of the foundation. It's only like $40 a year, and it supports all the amazing work here. That's really the best way to really get your hands on this thing and highlight and share it with people.
That's right. Our philosophy is that everything we do, we make available to the public. So everything we publish is on the website. But that website is very expensive to maintain, and if you are benefiting from what's on the website, benefiting from our information, I'm doing a little guilt trip now, please be a member and support the work we do. It's only $40 a year, but the more members we have, the more we can do.
And people keep telling me, this is life-saving information. So if it saved your life, goodness, yes, join hands with us.
And you were telling me earlier about young women who've been able to become fertile and have babies based on our information. One of the things we're really concerned about is pregnant women taking THC or CBD oil or smoking marijuana because these babies are born addicted. And I just got an email yesterday. It was so shocking. It was promoting cannabis for morning sickness.
Well, thank you for that word, and I'm hoping people take it to heart. Now let's talk about the third article that's hard-hitting or surprising, I would say. It has to do with fluoride.
Yes. So what are the 3 myths that are circulating today? Vaccines don't cause autism. Cannabis is good for you. It'll cure everything. And the third one is that there's nothing wrong with fluoride, nothing wrong with putting fluoride in the water, and the people who are against it are just the old ladies in tennis shoes, crazy people. By the way, I'm from Los Angeles, and I remember the early days. They tried to fluoridate the water in Los Angeles, and the newspapers talked about the old ladies in tennis shoes coming to the meetings opposed to fluoridation.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so that stuck with me. And we did not get fluoridation in Los Angeles. They fluoridated San Francisco, but not Los Angeles. Now, today, LA is fluoridated. But when I was growing up, we did not have fluoride in our water.
Well, so many communities, maybe I think I interviewed someone recently on this topic. They said like 80% of the communities in the U.S. fluoridate their water. So it's a practice that's been going on for a while, and it's still very popular. Why is that?
I think the industry just has a lot of influence in the U.S. Where is the fluoride coming from? It's coming from the fertilizer industry, the nuclear power industry, and the aluminum industry, and we have a lot of those industries in America.
And it's a waste product, right?
It is absolutely a waste product. It's very hard to clean up. And so in the early days, it was really the nuclear power industry said, we've got to figure out a way so we don't have to have this expense of cleaning up the waste. And so let's put it in the water. Spread it out and put it in the water, and instead of just dumping it all in the water in one place. And so they came up with a lot of fraudulent research to make people think that it would cure tooth decay or prevent tooth decay. And by the way, Dr. Price was totally opposed to fluoridation. He said, I've studied traditional people all over the world who have beautiful teeth and no cavities, and their water's not fluoridated, so it has nothing to do with that. And it was for that reason that he became persona non grata. He was just dropped and ignored because he opposed fluoridation.
And what is it that the fluoride is doing to us?
Well, the fluoride is a poison, and it causes, the number one thing it does is depress thyroid function. And it was given to zoo animals and circus animals way back, starting in Russia actually. It was given to circus animals to make them docile so they wouldn't attack their trainers. And it was given in Germany to make the people docile. And so that's what it does. It just lowers your total energy. You don't want to fight back, And so it's created a kind of docile population. But at the same time, in certain people, it provokes a lot of anger and violence.
Wow, this is alarming. And I keep thinking about something I read recently where they said, usually with any medical intervention, they need your consent. So here they are putting, quote unquote, like a medicine or something for our benefit in our water without our consent.
Without our consent. And the other thing is, we need to really think about that. They set up a system where they can put a chemical in our water. So they've got whatever machinery it is putting the chemical in the water all over the country. Now, suppose someone just privately, secretly put something even more poisonous in the water. It's all set up. The system's all ready to go.
That's alarming. And so what else does the author in this article have to say about fluoride? Is there a good way for us to avoid it if it's in our water?
Well, he also says it lowers IQ. Now, and we've seen the IQs go steadily down over the last 50 years. Is that something you want to do to your child? You want to lower your IQ? Maybe it's only 5 points. But that's the difference between a genius and someone who's just smart, or that's the difference between somebody who's got average intelligence and low intelligence. 5 points it's not a lot, but it can make a huge difference. So it lowers intelligence, lowers thyroid function, and it also causes, ironically, mottling of the teeth. So the teeth are very unsightly, and you've got this kind of yellow mottling on the teeth. So it interferes with the enamel on your teeth.
Yeah, that's fluorosis, isn't that what they call it?
Yeah, you're right. And one thing we need to be aware of, when fluoridation first started, they were using sodium fluoride in the water, which wasn't good. But now they use something called fluorosilicic acid, which is even worse. It's a really horrible waste chemical that needs to be carefully handled and so forth. Ironically, a lot of that is coming from China. So we are importing this poison from China and putting it in our water.
Oh my gosh. I try not to react emotionally, but that's horrible. We would think that toxins would come externally from, random things, not from something that we suppose as a general public is good for us.
Right. And so this will be in all reconstituted juices. It'll be in the soft drinks. It's not just in the water we drink and the water we cook with, but it's in all the liquids that we're drinking.
Well, and then someone said to me, what if they're irrigating organic farms with this water?
Yeah. Well, it tends to be put in drinking water, so I'm not sure that is happening. There are a lot of pesticides, though, that contain fluoride.
Goodness. Well, is there any good news? I mean, how do we avoid it then if it's in our water? Did you say already?
Right. Well, again, I always say it's kind of overwhelming, all the poisons out there. The fluoride, the aluminum, the vaccinations, and most people have had vaccinations. I had one when I was a child and had a very bad reaction. So how do we avoid? Well, we do the best we can to avoid, overt contacts. So we try to avoid vaccinations and so forth. But the other side of that equation is the diet. And a really good diet can provide powerful protection. First of all, the fat-soluble vitamins, I always come back to them, but vitamin A is our number one protection against toxins in the environment. And we had plenty of toxins in ancient times because we were using fire to cook everything, burning fields, lots and lots of smoke inhalation, a lot of dioxins in smoke. And our bodies can deal with those dioxins if we have plenty of vitamin A. Again, the other part of that is the gut flora because, good gut flora will keep out the bad stuff, keep your body from absorbing it. So I think it's kind of a balance between the fat-soluble vitamins, good gut flora, so eat your fermented foods, and then a lot of bone broth because the glycine in bone broth helps us detoxify.
Oh, I'm so happy to end on that positive note. Honestly, because sometimes people say to us on social media platforms like, oh, you're trying to scare people. And I was thinking, no, we're not. We're trying to inform people and then give them a way out.
Yes, we're trying to empower people. And I will not actually write or publish an article with a problem in it unless we can offer a solution. So we always have a list of solutions, a list of ways of avoiding and so forth. And you don't want to become obsessive about this, but you just want to be aware.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time today, Sally.
Thank you, Hilda.
Our guest today was Sally Fallon Morell. Look for her books, resources, her speaking schedule, and her blog on her website, nourishingtraditions.com. You can find me at Holistic Hilda on Instagram. And for the show notes for this and every podcast episode, go to our website, westonaprice.org. That's where you'll also find the Speakpipe app that I was telling you about, so you can give us your feedback on what this podcast has meant to you. That's it, everybody. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.